Bobby J From Rockaway. What's good, man?
What's up, brother? What are you drinking?
Sound good and everything?
Sounds good, man. What are you drinking?
I am drinking Arrogant Bastard. This joint. Arrogant Bastard. I love this shit. This is like 7.2. And I like this slogan on the back. This shit says drink fresh numbskull. Yeah, I love this shit. What you got?
Drinking a little bourbon.
Woo, that's the hair on the chest shit.
Yeah, man. I've been I don't know. I've kind of become a bourbon man over the past couple of years. You know what I mean? I don't really drink beer too much anymore, to be honest with you.
I feel you. I drink beer and that's just about it. Everything else gets me a little too out of my fucking zone. Like all the other shit just puts me out. So between the trees, I have water. Thanks, Jenny Styles. We got water too. No doubt. So this is episode 33 of Carrying the Culture Show. We got Bobby J From Rockaway. Been trying to do this for a minute in my head, and thank you for joining us, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me, bro. It's been a long time coming, man. You know, I'm a fan of the page. I'm a fan of what you do. I'm a fan of the interviews that you've done. You know, I definitely tuned in when you had Chino on the show. That was an idol of mine growing up. So, you know, I respect what you do, and I'm just happy to be here, man. I'm happy to be on the show, you know.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Big up everybody joining in. Big up Jamel Shabazz. You know what I'm saying? Love your picks. Big up everybody.
Whoa, Jamel Shabazz, man. Fuck,
no,
man. A legend, an absolute legend. And we just lost Ricky Powell. You know what I'm saying? Rest in peace, Ricky Powell. Like, Jamel Shabazz is, for people that don't know, is just an iconic New York City photographer, man. Just some of the most incredible time capsule pictures in New York City. You know, I hope I'm working on building a house right now, and I hope to get some of his pictures blown up in my house, because the stuff that he's done and the pictures that he's taken are so amazing, man. You know what I mean?
If you ain't from even if you ain't from New York, you look at his pictures, you like, yo, I'm from New York right now. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean it goes back. I mean it spans decades, man. It's incredible. It's incredible.
No doubt. So a couple things real quick. You guys had questions for Bobby, please use the questions feature below. It has a little question mark there. That way I can pull it up and we can all see it. Doesn't mean we'll actually get to it, but please put them there if you have them. Another thing is, if you get out of pocket on here, it's just like on the page, I send you fucking home, because this is the fact that we're doing it live doesn't mean that it's not an interview. We're chopping it up and shit like that, so don't cut up in here. So, yo, I wanted to say before we get started, man, like, you're a really dope spitter, and I just wanted to share, like, so I heard you on, well, I'll put it on it too. We just had it. We didn't have it on, but this is my shit right here. This is what I heard. The first time I heard you was a video.
Yeah, don't slip and fall into the trap. No Atlanta rap. This is Darwinism. You always think if you can't adapt, we can go hand in hand, or we can let the hammer clap. Choose your own shit, girl.
3 years ago, this was 2019. This came out, or when this album came out. But I saw the video, and I'm like, yo, who the fuck is this kid, man? Who is this? And this is when I was with the radio station, and we tried to we did the 60 for us and everything like that. And ever since then, you've been on the radar. I was like, yo, this cat is fucking crazy.
Thank you, bro.
No doubt, man. And so I like your music, man. It's good, and it's like, for me, it's like, I'm not in love with I don't love every single track, but even the tracks that I'm not like in love with, this shit is fucking top-notch production, top-notch bars. Like, it's on point, yo. So
Thank you, brother.
Fucks with your music, heavy.
Thank you, man.
So, and I always say, like, there's the oh shit factor in this for me. Like, does it make me say oh shit? When I heard you, I was like, oh shit, like, I gotta find out who this kid is. So, yo, let's let's get into. I got a lot of questions, and I did some research and stuff, but I'm coming from a place of curiosity, like just you know what I mean, like style wise and stuff like that. Just what you're about, but you broke it down actually on the track where I'm from, but take us to Rockaway, man. I'm a little familiar with it only because I got a friend out in it's far Rockaway. I know there's a couple, you know what I'm saying? It's far Rockaway. There's some project out there. I've been out there like once, but like break it down as far as like, you know what I mean? Coming up for you, man, because that's something that's always intrigued me. Like, how'd you just become a super nice MC?
Like part of the reason I put is I'm gonna try and not be long-winded, but part of the reason I put From Rockaway in my professional name is because, you know, as far as Queens is concerned, right? Like, there's so many iconic MCs that have come out of Queens, right? You know, you could talk about Hollis all day. You could talk about Jamaica, you know, Flushing. Like, you can go down the rabbit hole. But as far as Rockaway is concerned, you know, you could really count the people that you're even aware of on pretty much one hand. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, we could start at MC Search, you know, Father MC. You know, people know Chinks, they know Stack Bundles, rest in peace. You know, if you're a fan of what's going on now, you may know somebody like Flea Lord, you may know Keen Streets. But like we've always been underrepresented and also misrepresented. So for me, like putting the From Rockaway shit in my name, like my name is, it's serious, but at the same time, tongue in cheek. You know what I'm saying? I want people to be like, Bobby J from Rockaway. Like, what the fuck is that? But at the same time, there is, you know, it's kind of me putting my neighborhood on my back and saying like, yo, I know, you know, you have your preconceived notions about what Rockaway Beach is, but I want to take control of the narrative and like really show you what it's about, which is why I shoot most of my videos in Rockaway. You know, I really try to wear it on my chest as like, you know, like this is where I'm from. This is unlike any other part of New York City that you've come to know, because you know, people think of New York outside of you know, outside of the city. You know, they you know, they see the bodegas, they see the high-rise apartments, they see, you know, the stereotypical, you know, skyline visions of New York City. But, you know, I live in a place where you have all of that, but at the same time, you go down the block and there's a beach and there's people surfing and there's a boardwalk. And it's like you have all the symptoms of a New York City neighborhood, but you have this other side, you have this other culture that's just completely unique. And to me, that's what I try to embrace, and I try to bring that forth in my music, because I think most people's vision of Far Rock is like, you know, either they know Chinks or Stack Bundles or whatever, and it's kind of like, it's almost like the way people look at Detroit. It's like, it's dangerous there, don't go there. You know what I'm saying? It's like no man's land, and there's just so much more to it. And I'm just trying to give the full, you know, 360 full circumference of what's really going on here. So, you know, I just try to embrace of what, you know, what's unique about my neighborhood. And I think, you know, I think my neighborhood really shaped me as a person. So it's as much a part of my identity as anything else. So, you know, the fact that I put it as part of my actual name is super important, because I'm trying to control the narrative. You know what I'm saying? It's the same as like how, you know, a Dre or a Snoop, you know, control the narrative about what you know about Compton if you're not from there, or, you know, how Jay-Z speaks about Marcy all the time. Like, that's the backdrop to everything that I do. So, you know, it's, you know, I'm New York to the core, I'm Queens to the core, but really I feel like when you talk about New York City and Queens, especially, New York is, Rockaway rather, is really its own entity, and it's hard to articulate to someone who's never really been here and never spent a lot of time out here. It's really about juxtaposition, man. Like, you know, you have what's called uptown and downtown. You have pockets of extreme wealth, you have pockets of extreme poverty, you know, you have the city and you have the beach, you know, so it's all these weird things that are kind of clashing together. And that's always what interested me about it. And that's what I try to show more than anything, you know.
Word, that's dope, man. I really appreciate you sharing that because I can see that in your music. I can see that in your vibe and your steez, and I can see it's like one thing I was thinking that I appreciate about you as far as the feeling I get from your music and as far as how you present yourself is that you're you. Like, you know what I mean? If that makes any sense. Like, you're not trying to be any, you're Bobby. Like, and
Exactly.
you know what I mean? Like, and I like that because, I'm Bobby J from Rockaway, and it's like, it's cool because it's like, for me, I don't see anything extra there. I don't see anything. I see like, all right, this is just a dude doing his shit, and it's like it's refreshing because you just seem like a regular guy. You know what I mean? But in
Well,
that sense,
I think that's important, bro. And honestly, I think that was something that took me a long time to accept. You know what I mean? I think if you speak to any artist, you know, any serious artist, they'll talk about the journey to realize like who they actually are. You know what I'm saying? Like the moment when they actually figure out like, all right, this is how I want to sound. This is how I want to portray myself on my records. And I think for me, you know, it took me a long time just to look in the mirror and say like, okay, this is who I am. You know what I mean? And for me, the biggest thing is authenticity in hip hop and music in general. So if I'm not being myself or doing the best I can to give you my authentic self uh, through my music, then I'm failing. You know what I'm saying? And it's hard. You know what I'm saying? Because I grew up just like any other hip hop fan, man. Like I grew up listening to street rap. You know, people were talking about lifestyles that were not anything that I was involved in. You know, especially when I think about, you know, my evolution as like a lyricist, all the rappers I looked up to were talking about, you know, selling drugs, shooting people. I was a huge, you know, Smack DVD fan. I was watching all the battles. And, you know, like through those developmental stages, it's hard not to get caught up in that. Like, you know, try to emulate the people that you're listening to. So it took me a long time to like actually be comfortable in my own skin and be like, all right, this is, if I'm going to be a rapper, I have to do it from a perspective that's authentic in a way that's believable. You know what I'm saying? And to me, that's the hardest thing. It's like this balancing act. You know, I'm a student of the '90s and the '80s, and you know, it's like how do I make authentic hip hop in a way that's true to myself, that's not corny, but at the same time isn't trying to, you know, be something I'm not. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of growth I think that takes place. You know what I mean? When you're just kind of learning how to make songs and shit like that. So, you know, I feel like I'm always evolving. So, you know, I'm always learning new shit. But that's like the most important thing to me. It's like, you know, just be yourself. You know, because when you're yourself and you know, people can't duplicate what you're doing, that's when you really have arrived. You know what I mean? And all the artists that inspired me were truly being themselves. You know what I mean?
right, right. No, I think that's important, man. Because here's the thing: when you're an artist and you're not really yourself, and then later on in your career you try to be yourself, start looking at you like, what the fuck is going on? Like, there's a there's a disconnect there. So I appreciate it, man. I definitely feel the authenticity in your shit. Like it just comes through. Like, okay, this is you. You know what I mean? You're not trying to just you're just you. So that's
Thank you,
important.
man.
Yo, so I saw an interview that you did. You talked about like, you know, in the early days of your hip hop shit, you know, not everybody in your hood was doing that on your side of the neighborhood. Like, so you talked about being a little isolated. Can you add on to that a little bit? Like, as far as, you know, being younger and being into this.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it just wasn't you know, the neighborhood that I grew up in, people were into hip hop, but you know, they listened to the music. They weren't obsessed with it on the level that I was. You know what I'm saying? There wasn't other people rapping, there wasn't people DJing, there wasn't people really making beats. So, you know, you know, in in my early years, you know, it was just me kind of like sitting in my basement, downloading music, discovering the hip hop that I liked, um, just kind of figuring shit out on my own. You know what I'm saying? Learning how to rhyme, like really just being like an internet kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that was the only place where I could really meet like-minded people. Um, you know, but locally, like there was no scene, you know, just it wasn't like other parts of Queens where I could like, you know, I know this kid that's trying to rap, or I know this kid that's trying to DJ, I know this kid that's trying to make beats. So in order for me to get on, you know, it wasn't until I really got to high school where I really got to, you know, meet other kids that were rapping and shit like that. You know, it's like you think you're the best kid in your own bedroom when you're rapping, but it wasn't until like high school where I had like a forum to rap in front of people and have like unbiased people, you know, judge me on my skills. So that was extremely helpful because that's where I met my boy Anthony, who pretty much became my best friend in high school, and he was already working with Kwame at that point. So we would battle in the lunchroom. You know, we would go through all the kids that rapped in our high school, and you know, basically, me and him got real cool. We basically became best friends, and I would go to his house. He would come to my house. We would write songs together, and he ended up taking me to Kwame's studio when they were working together. Kwame at this time lived in Harlem. He lived on 145th Street in Edgecombe. And, you know, in those days, I'm talking like 2001, which is crazy. It seems like yesterday, but in those days, like just getting in a studio and being able to record in a professional setting that felt like the second step in my career. Like, all right, I'm actually moving forward, you know, whereas nowadays it's like, okay, you could buy a Pro Tools setup, you could buy a Logic setup or whatever. The barrier to entry is just not there. But that was like just getting in a studio and being able to work in a studio was like, you know, it was a rung in the ladder to getting a deal. You know what I'm saying? And I was just extremely lucky, and you know, it was complete happenstance that it happened like that. Because I ended up working with a producer that was experienced. You know what I'm saying? And it just happened in that way that I met somebody that knew this guy, and I don't know any other way to explain it. It's just, you know, I ended up, you know, I was 13, 14 years old, you know, in a studio, completely green, could barely write a song, could barely rap on beat. And, you know, I got to give it to Kwame because, you know, he saw something in me early on. And we talk about this often. It's like, I'm like, yo, I don't even understand why you continue to work with me because I could barely rap on beat. Like, I'm not even exaggerating.
Yeah, you were 13, right? Or something like that?
Yeah, I was like 13. So, but my friend Anthony vouched for me. And Anthony, to this day, he goes by the name Billy Bang. And he's actually locked up right now, which is crazy. But you know, he vouched for me, and you know, he really wanted to help me and wanted to help me get on. And honestly, like from that period of 14 to like 19 years old, that was my artist development period. You know what I'm saying? That was me going in the studio, cutting records. All I wanted to do in the beginning was just battle. I just wanted to battle rap. That's, you know, I wasn't writing any types of songs. I had no concepts. It was just metaphors and battle rapping. And, you know, Kwame really took me under his wing and like showed me the way, you know what I'm saying? And I'm so grateful for that because I look at a lot of young artists and a lot of young rappers, and they just don't have that guidance. You know what I'm saying? You know, everyone thinks they're ready. Everyone who can spit a rhyme thinks they're ready. And it's just not the case. You know what I'm saying? It took me 5 or 6 years before we were even confident to be like, all right, let's put something out. You know what I mean? And that's just extremely important. I think that's something that just doesn't even exist anymore. You know what I mean? But yeah, like in the early days, I knew nobody who was rapping. I knew nobody who was DJing. I knew nobody who was making beats. It was just me, myself, and my computer screen, and it was like I knew what I liked. I would research all the artists I like. I would download everything they did, and it was just taking myself to school, man. Like I would sit in my basement and study.
Yo, so that's wild. So at 13, 14, you're making songs with Kwame, who by this time, had produced a lot of hits that people really don't, and a lot of joints that people don't know about and stuff like that.
Well, not at that time.
At that time, he wasn't doing that. He wasn't
at that time, and it's crazy because he still kind of had this black cloud over his head.
You said in 01? Let's put the time frame in perspective. You're 30, you're like 30, 33?
I'm 33. I just turned 33. So at the time, it's 2001. He had, I'm trying to think of if he had any major placements at this point. Which
I'm gonna look it up while you keep going. But yeah, because
he was living in a box. I mean, he was living in a fucking box, for all intents and purposes. Like he lived in like a 6-story walk up in Harlem. It was basically a living room, a bathroom, and a bedroom, and his whole entire studio was his 24-track deck. His mic was in his bedroom. He had a couch and a bathroom and a tiny kitchen. So he wasn't making any money at this point.
Right.
And he was essentially blacklisted, bro. Like he was trying to get back on. But I think at this point, Ron Lawrence from the Hitmen is basically who helped him get back on. So Ron Lawrence was basically helping him sell his beats. So I think maybe at this point he had gotten a Mary J. Blige placement on a song.
Look at you with your knowledge, right?
On a song called
Love.
A song called Love on the No More Drama album, which was a huge fucking album. He did a LL song called 10 Million Stars.
This guy going right in order.
That was around that time. And then things just started to fall into place. So like, he got those, like, he literally went from like having nothing to like he got Mary and LL.
Then Drew Hill, Nick Cannon, JoJo, Lloyd Banks, Janet Jackson, Will Smith, Pussycat Dolls, Method Man, Chingy, Christina Aguilera, fucking Maya, Talib Kweli, Keisha Cole, and you keep it on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I literally saw him. This is why I respect him so much. It's just I saw him go from, not humble beginnings, going from the height of fame to being brought back down to complete reality, right? And that could have been the end of his story. The end of Kwame's story could have been your life is played out like Kwame and them fucking polka dots. Boom, your story's done. And to see him go from a rapper at the top of his game to become a producer and his producer career be arguably more prolific than his career as a rapper.
I've not arguably, in my opinion, like without a doubt.
I saw him, I helped him move from his apartment to his house in Jersey. I saw him buy a house in Jersey and, own a huge fucking crib. So, to see that was crazy and be along for that ride was crazy. Yeah, man. And, I was really there, like ground zero, man, because he was just trying to sell his beats at that point. He was just living in his apartment and like trying to get whatever work he could. And he just he was talented, man. So it was bound to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So let's go back to as far as you being alone on a computer, like looking for hip hop. What was the shit that set it off for you that said, okay, I want to try to do this? You know what I'm saying? Because I think, most of us that are like really in the hip hop or in the rap, the whole culture or whatever, tried at one point or started to, tried to rap. A lot of us did anyway.
Yeah.
And so like, what was it that made you say, okay, I really want to do this? Like, what was the music that was setting it off for you?
Well, I gotta give my older brother Eric credit because, uh, he's 5 years older than me. So, when you're a kid, you look up to your older brother. You try to, you want to hang out with his friends. You want to dress like him. You want to do everything that they're doing. And my brother was a huge hip hop fan, and this predates the internet. So I just remember being a young kid and going in his rooms and stealing his cassettes and his CDs, and his CD collection was like the perfect hip hop 101 because it was like it was like Nas, Illmatic, Reasonable Doubt, um, DMX, It's Dark and Hell is Hot, Capital Punishment. I remember Lost Boys, Legal Drug Money was a huge album for me. Um, fucking what else? He had the Funk Master Flex, 60 Minutes of Funk. Just I'd go in his room and just steal everything that he was listening to.
You were like
And
what,
then
9 years old?
9, 10, 11, the Chronic, Doggy Style. So he just had like he had it's the 90s, man. Like all the big albums were good albums, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was written, you know what I mean? So I was going in there and listening to him, and I think honestly the turning point was listening to maybe Capital Punishment and the Slim Shady LP, and just listening to the way Pun and Eminem were rapping, and just comparing it, and Nas too, and just comparing it to the other rap albums I was listening to, and being like, whoa, whoa, like there's something else going on with these guys that like sets the bar way up here. And I remember like that was almost like the switch that gave me the ear, you know what I'm saying, where I started to recognize the rhyme patterns and the technique and the way that they were doing it. And I think once that happened, and it perfectly coincides with the dawn of me getting the internet in my house at like 12 or 13 years old, because it's like once I realized I like Pun and all that shit, I got Napster, and then it's like, okay, what else is like this? You know what I'm saying? And then I got into Big L, I got into Chino XL, I got into um fucking not only that, like I got into like Idea and Esoteric and Copyright, The Weatherman and Cage, and like all the, I just wanted to absorb as much hip hop music as I possibly could. And the internet was just my gateway into the underground. It was like, I use it as kind of like a time machine, and also, a way to put myself onto rap music that just wasn't popping on, mainstream radio. So, I used it to discover like Cool G Rap, Rakim, KRS-One, Big Daddy Kane. At the same time, I used it to discover, the underground shit. I was listening to Stretch and Bob, the Wake Up Show. So I just became a sponge, and really it was just cannabis, man. Like honestly, cannabis was one of the biggest influences on me. Once I discovered cannabis, it was like I need to hear everything this guy ever did. You know what I'm saying? So once I really realized like the type of rap music that I like, I just went head first and tried to find as much possible shit that I could get into.
That's dope. You soaked it up. I'm gonna send you a track that my man did a couple of years ago with he produced it. It's got Cannabis leading off, Chris Rivers, and then G Rap cleaning up. It's ridiculous. I'll send it to you. It's on Spotify.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Cannabis goes hard for like 2-3 minutes. Yeah, that's dope, yo. That's how it happened for you. Like in terms of you use that that technology to, you know what I'm saying. Questions. What's the major influences? I think we just covered that one. Well, and those were the cats that lyrically, I guess, because I like when spitters tell us, who'd you really fuck with lyrically though? Like where it was like, you know what I'm saying? I hear some different people in your voice or in your steez. like at different times, it's like, oh, I hear this a little bit, I hear a little bit. Like who was like lyrically like was like you fucking with?
Well, I mean, look, dude, like it's funny because as much as I was a fan of the underground, I was still a fan of the mainstream too.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I was young, so I didn't have like the corruption of like, which I understand now is like, you know, you could only listen to underground. Like if you fuck with these guys, you're not listening to Jay-Z and DMX and Busta Rhymes and like, you know, like I didn't have like the backpacker mentality. So I think what was good about it was, you know, I was listening to guys like Chino and Big L and Idea and Slug and Cage and you know, you can go down the list of all the underground guys, but at the same time, you know, I was still listening to the rappers that were selling records. So I was listening to the Jays, I was listening to the Nas, you know, Busta Rhymes was huge for me. You know, even the commercial records of the time, you know, the Nellies, the Ludacris's, like in the back of my mind, I was like, fuck them. But, you know, I still liked the records because I was, you know, in high school and I was going to parties and that's what they were playing. You know what I'm saying? So, for me, as my style evolved, and I even think the way I look at myself now, you know, I was thinking about it before we did the interview. It's like, I always want my shit to be a balance of lyricism and catchiness, you know, shit that you could rock to. You know what I mean? Like I listen to records like Where I'm From, you know, and even groups like Far Side or the Hyro crew, you know, they made records that were quintessentially hip hop records, but they had great beats, they had great hooks and choruses to go along with it. You know, it's a great record has, you know, it's the marriage of all these different elements. You know what I'm saying? It's great lyrics, great beat, great chorus. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that, you know, I've always tried to do. It's like, you know, though I'm a underground head at heart, I never turned my back on what was going on commercially, and I try to take the best from all different places. You know, I don't know if that answers your question. I mean, for me to say like who is the biggest influence on my style in terms of lyrics, it would have to be a combination of like number one, like my number one guy is Black Thought. You know, I think right there with him is Method Man. You know, Pun, Eminem, you know, but like honestly for real, like Black Thought and Method Man, like as it stands, like right now to this day, those are guys that anytime they drop something, I stop what I'm doing and I listen. And you know, Black Thought has kind of gotten his flowers recently. You know, I feel like people have finally come around and like recognized.
Past couple of years.
You know, the past couple of years, people have really like acknowledged how fucking incredible that guy is.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like that always. But I think Meth is another guy that's, you know, and it's weird to say that because Meth is a guy, you know, he's part of Wu-Tang. He's had huge hits, both solo and with the Clan. But I feel like the modern rap fan who's out of the loop still kind of looks at him like, he's a 90s rapper or his time came and went. In my personal opinion, I feel like he's nicer now than he's ever been. Like he's fucking incredible to me. And from a flow standpoint, he influences me a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like the way he flows, the way he says things, is fucking incredible. So, you know, I'm a huge Method Man guy. I'm a huge Black Thought guy. Royce would be another guy, you know, I pay attention to. You know, I always try to, you know, keep tabs on, you know, I think that top tier class, you know, there's a lot of nice rappers, but I think that top tier, that 1% is a class of like, you know, maybe 10 people, maybe less. You know what I'm saying? You got your Royces, your Black Thoughts, your Meth, you know, guys like Lupe, Planet Asia, Eminem. You know, it's you know, once you're in that class, you know, there's only so many people around you. So I try to pay attention to those guys and study what they do. You know.
Yeah, good group. I mean, you can't go wrong with Black Thought and Meth. I mean, come on. And you know, like both of those dudes are straight up killers. Yo, weren't you battling at a young age in Left Rack too or some shit like that?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Tell us about
This
that shit.
well, I mean, there's no doc. Well, actually, there's documentation of it, but I think it's gone forever.
Mm.
There's a VHS that me and Quam have been trying to source forever on me battling in Left Rack, but my boy Anthony, who I mentioned before,
Mm.
aka Billy Bang, he was from Left Rack, and you know, that was my best friend in high school, and he used to bring me out to battle people. Like we used to go around, and I'd be 14 or 15, and we used to square up with people and battle. You know, and that was my first foray into that shit at a young age. And it's
Shit.
crazy. Like his next door neighbor, this will bug you out. I don't know if you know much about like Thug Down Entertainment back in the day, but his next door neighbor was Sho Bellotti from a group called The Final Chapter. So with Sho and Al Gatto, and they were signed to Thug Down Entertainment, which was Nori's label at the time. Um, and Sho is my guy. Sho's done a lot for me over the years. But literally, like I would go over, me and Ant would be in high school, and we'd get up with Sho, and we'd get into ciphers and stuff. And I remember there was a big day in Left Rack called Family Day, where like like all the buildings would congregate in the basketball court in Left Rack, like right off 57th Avenue. And I remember I battled some dude who was like in his 30s. I was like 14 or 15 at the time. I don't even think the rhyme was good. I don't even know if I don't even remember what I said, but I just remember I got a response from the crowd. And you know, I was like the only white kid there, obviously. But I look back on it now, and it was extremely important because that shit gave me the confidence to keep going. You know what I'm saying? Like if I would have if I would have gotten booed, or you know, people shitted on me, it would have been, you know, I probably would have quit like that day. You know what I'm saying? But it was and maybe now that I look back on it, you know, like maybe somebody took it easy on me and just like wanted me to win. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't even remember, like it was literally 20 years ago. But you know, it's those little things like that that kept me going. You know what I'm saying? Like having that validation from the crowd, being in high school and battling people, and having that validation from the crowd, working with Kwame and not being, you know, not being polished, but him still wanting to work with me. You know, all that stuff added up. And I think about that often as I look back on it. You know what I'm saying? Like all that shit was extremely important, because if somebody would have been like, yo, listen, you suck, bro. Like you need to stop. I probably would have stopped. You know what I'm
Word.
saying? And like for a young kid who's like 12, 13, 14 years old, you know, you're very impressionable and you take a lot of shit to heart. And I'm glad that it didn't pan out like that. So, you know, I owe a lot to these people, man. I owe a lot to my boy Anthony. I owe a lot to Kwame, because, you know, they kept putting fuel in the tank, and, you know, and they kept pushing me forward, because I could honestly say, like, I was very insecure at that point. You know, I wasn't sure if I was as good as I thought I personally was. So,
Right.
you know, that stuff kept me going.
Right. Now, that makes sense. Yo, so in some ways you're kind of like in the middle, you kind of straddle like eras in hip hop, and and you know, what's your thoughts on like just the shit today? Do you fuck with do you make trap music? Like, is that your lane? Like, what's this? how do you look at as far as 2021, just state of the union address from Bobby J?
No, I don't make trap music. I don't hate it or dislike it. I just don't. For me, it would sound completely contrived and fake if I tried to do something like that. It's not what I grew up listening to. It's not what inspires me. It's not what I'm going to try and make. So no, I'm not going to make trap music. But you know, as far as new music is concerned, I think there's more music now than there ever was. I think there's a lot of good hip hop being made. You know, if you're willing to dig for it and willing to look for it. Do I have the time to always look for it? No. So again, I'm basing my opinion off of what's kind of forced on me. Do I like what's forced on me? Not particularly. You know, again, like I think I'm like most hip hop fans. You know, I like J. Cole, I like Kendrick, I like Joyner Lucas, I like you know, YB and Cordae, I like you know, I like Griselda, I like, you know, I like what they're doing. I like guys like RJ Payne, and you know, I like guys that are doing the type of stuff that I like. But you know, I'm not on the wave of like, oh, you know, this shit is the devil and it's destroying rap music. I more or less look at it like rap is the umbrella, and there's a lot of subgenres. You know, it's like there's rock and roll and there's punk music, there's thrash metal, there's classic rock. You know, there's all these different things, and it's not just confined to one thing. And I think rap is literally that big now, where there's all these different subgenres, and they should be treated as such. And you know, I'm not going to judge a fish for how it climbs a tree. You know, I'm not going to listen to Little Yachty or, you know, fucking Little Pump and judge it by the same standard that I judge, you know, a J. Cole or you know, a Kendrick. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's almost a different focal point at this point. And I would compare it to almost, and I made this comparison before, it's like, you know, if you look at rock music in the 70s, right? You had, you know, in the mid 70s, you had all these groups, and I don't know if you're like a classic rock fan or whatever, but my parents were huge classic rock fans.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you what other music you were into.
Yeah, so like, you know, my mom listened to nothing but classic rock. My dad listened to classic rock, like new wave and shit. So, you know, if you look at rock and roll in the 70s, you know, mid 70s, you had groups like the Eagles, Doobie Brothers, Steely Dan, you know, all these very melodic, classically trained musicians, great harmonies, great lyricists, you know, great songwriting, right? And then, you know, late 70s come along, you know, 1977, 78, and boom, the Sex Pistols come out, you know, the Ramones come out. And all of a sudden, it's not about how good of a guitar player you are. Actually, the worse you are, the better you are. You know what I'm saying? The worse a singer you are, the better you are. And it's not so much about this traditional way of making rock music. It's just about the energy and the vibe and the way it makes people feel. It's like, you know, you're just fucking screaming and people are jumping around having a good time, and that's punk music. And punk music was a complete affront to the era that directly preceded it, right? And I personally feel, and I don't even know if hip hop artists are even cognizant of this happening. I just think it's kind of the natural evolution. I don't know if these young kids like Little Yachty or whatever are even aware of this. You know, there's always going to be a counter movement to what's going on. So, you know, when you think about the focal point of what these kids are doing, is it's not about spitting the best 16. It's not about being nice. It's just about making shit that makes people want to jump up and down and fucking go crazy. And I don't like it. Not that I don't like it, it's just not my thing. But a fucking 12 or 13-year-old kid thinks it's the shit, and they put it on and they want to jump up and down and have a good time. And you know, you see these guys perform at these festivals and shit like that, and they have, you know, 100,000 people jumping up and down. And you know, the whole concept of, you know, what an MC is move the crowd. And can I make the argument that these guys are not good rappers? Sure. Can I make the argument that they're not MCs? I don't know. You know, when there's 20,000 people losing their fucking mind to your music, it's kind of hard to argue in that direction. Do I think it's hip hop? I don't know. I mean, like, am I going to be the arbiter of what's hip hop and what's not hip hop? I don't really know, man. It's just, I just think music is a forever evolving thing. Whether we like it or not, you know, the hip hop umbrella as we move forward is just going to encompass a lot of different things. Like I said, it's just subgenres, man. You know, there's boom bap, there's trap, there's mumble rap, there's emo rap, there's all this different shit. And I think at the end of the day, it's first and foremost, it's black music. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it's, you know, it falls under the hip hop umbrella, you know, whether we like it or not. And the main thing for me is I don't want to be the old man in the rocking chair that says, that's not hip hop, because, you know, when rap first came out, there was the generation before that was saying, you know, that's not Sam Cooke, that's not Marvin Gaye, this is noise, what the fuck is this? And they were listening to Rakim and Cool G rap. So, you know, you know, I recognize that I'm getting older and my ear isn't the same as a young kid. So, you know, do I like it? Is it my cup of tea? Is it the type of music that I'm going to make? No.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to make the shit that I want to make. I'm going to make the shit that inspires me. I think it's important to preserve the culture of lyricism. I think it's important to preserve the culture of, you know, sample-based classic hip-hop. I'm an East Coast guy. You know, I want to keep the East Coast shit alive. But I'm definitely not going to be the guy to be like, that's not hip hop, you shouldn't like that. And you know, it's like, because the young kids are going to be like, fuck you anyway. When I was 16, I was like, fuck what somebody who's 30 feels like. Fuck, you know what I'm saying? Fuck somebody who's 40. I don't give a fuck what they think. I like 50 Cent. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I was 16, I didn't give a shit about Rakim. I was listening to what I like, but as I grew older, I got an appreciation for it. You know what I'm saying? And I had older people that put me on, and I think that's what we need to do. We need to be there so when the younger kids are willing to expand their horizons and, you know, expand their palette a little bit, we're there to kind of put them on. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think the pompous shit helps at all. I think you got to be receptive and say, like, all right, well, you want to learn about 90 shit? You want to learn about 80 shit? Well, let me put you on, you know?
I feel you. And I'm going to respond just to a couple of things you said, because it's I've heard that view and it makes sense to a certain degree. And I just, my response is, though, is just that there's two parts to it. One, so just to go on the last thing you said, you know, in terms of like putting them on, a lot of the younger cats don't want to be put on. They don't want to hear about the OGs. They don't want to hear about the shit because it's like noise. So you got to meet us halfway. That's one thing. The other thing that you made a point about was that the previous generation, and I just did a video on it, and I'm being killed. Because Marley Marl spoke about this on Drink Champs the other day. I'm actually going to talk about it, One Man Saved the Hip Hop Culture, in 9 minutes. But that is true. So when hip hop, I'll send you the video. But when the shit came out, yes, there was some blowback about what the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? However, it quickly established itself. The real shit established itself as a viable art form, and people recognized that. You had older people fucking with it, like Milk D from Audio 2. His dad, like, started First Priority Records. Casual's dad had High Road. They were all recording it in his crib. My father put me on to my stepfather put me on to Eric B and Rakim. He used to call him Rakim. He's like, you ever heard of Eric B and Rakim? And I was like, who? And he gave me the paid in full joint. So I'm just saying, like, yeah, there was pushback, but here's the difference, Bobby, for me with all of this. It's not just the music for me, man. Like for me, I grew up on hip hop culture. I grew up on you don't bite. You have originality. You have creativity. You have you know what I'm saying. You don't sound like someone else. Like a lot of hip hop principles that to me are lost in some of these quote unquote subgenres. Like where in trap and some of this stuff, a lot of the values there. I mean, so I feel like to me that's the biggest part that I gripe about, I guess, is it's not the music. I could give a fuck about the music. It's about some of the things that are like being pushed by some of these subgenres that I can't fuck with.
Well,
man.
I agree. I think my biggest gripe,
The auto tune and stuff like that.
my biggest gripe is not even necessarily, you know, the beats or whatever. You know, my biggest gripe is the content being pushed and the message being pushed.
Right.
You know,
That's what I'm saying.
my biggest gripe definitely is the content being pushed. You know, it seems that the message has been diluted to a point where, you know, it's just about, you know, opulence, selling drugs and doing drugs, you know, killing people. And, you know, it's just like this fill in the blank type of template where it's like, you know, I don't really care what I'm saying because people are just going to turn up to it anyway.
That's
You know,
what
I'm saying is inconsequential.
Right.
So, you know, it's vapid music that's being made with no real message.
Right.
Now, if there is a rapper who's rapping over trap type music that's actually saying something and is, you know, is nice and I can recognize that, I like that. You know, I think a guy like Joyner Lucas, you know, raps over trap type beats, but he's not a bullshit rapper. Like I know he's nice, you know what I'm saying? So I don't really lump him in with those type of people. I think Kendrick, you know, is another example. I think, you know, these guys rap over modernized production.
Right.
But the message isn't some bullshit, you know what I'm saying? And in a lot of ways they do it in a clever way, you know what I'm saying? Like you know, Kendrick put out the album a couple of years ago where he's rapping over what would be, I forget what the name of the record is, but he's rapping over what would be a dumb turn up beat, but he actually has a message to what he's saying. And I like stuff like that. You know, if you're saying something unique, if you're doing something that not everybody else is doing, or you're subverting a genre in a way that's like, all right, I'm gonna do what's popular, but I'm gonna do it in my own way and I'm gonna flip it. I respect that. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what makes superstars. You know, I think every time there is a new guy in rap or a new it guy, it's because they did something that somebody else didn't do and they changed the game. You know, I like artists that change the game. So, you know, I agree with you. I don't like in general, I don't like the subject matter. I don't like how it just promotes, you know, the worst negative stereotypes ever.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I want to hear somebody that's going to make me think. I want to hear somebody that's lyrically bringing something to the table. You know what I mean? And that's why I don't make that type of music. But at the same time, I understand why it exists. I understand why it's popular. You know, and I don't think I don't think it's all created equal. I think there are some people that do it well. You know what I mean? I mean, shit. Like if this was 2005, we'd be having the same conversation about the South and snap music, right?
Oh yeah.
You know, right?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, we would.
and
Yes.
look, in retrospect, we only remember, you know, at one point, like, and again, like, you know, New York has to take some of this blame. Is, you know, we were looking at the entire South as if the entire South was whack. You know what I'm saying? Like as if all of them were making snap music, and that, you know, in retrospect, 15 years later, that's obviously not the truth, man. Because, you know, like some of my favorite MCs are, you know, Bun B, Andre 3000, you know, Ball and MJG, fucking, you know, fucking, you know, you can go on and on and on. You know what I'm saying? Like there was great music being made during that era, but they were being given a bad name by the snap music types of that era. You know what I'm saying? Because those are the big records of that time. But though they were hits, they weren't classics, and they didn't stand the test of time. So when you look back on 2004, 5, 6, you only remember the records that were actually dope. So, you know, when the smoke clears and the dust settles and we look back on this generation, you know, we're going to remember the dope records. But, you know, again, from a commercial standpoint, and this extends to every era in hip hop, because you could look back in the early 90s and look at Vanilla Ice and fucking
Yeah, bro.
Gerardo, and there was always whack rappers, man. There was
Facts.
always somebody to point the finger at. So,
Facts.
you know, the classics are the records that stand the test of time. You know,
Of
that's the
course.
shit that people remember, you know.
Yeah, yeah, no, of course. Yeah, yeah, I totally got you. Yo, before we get on out of here, I do want to talk about your most recent project. I was late to the game with that one. It was joined with Daryl Jones. Uh, I I fucks with it, yo. I didn't. I was. I'm like a skeptical dude about shit. With like, I was like, what's this gonna be like? Like just.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I went into it skeptical, just in general, because that's me. But I was like, my joint. There's some joints on there. Yo. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
How did
Thank
that come
you.
about?
Well, you know, well, I put out two projects this year. So the first one that I dropped in May was the Endless Summer project with Static Selector, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and the joint with Daru was crazy, man, because the way it came together was so weird. You know, we did a show at this spot called the Blue Note in New York City, which is it's on it's on McDougal Street, and it's a world famous like jazz club,
That's in the
and
village.
yeah, it's in the Village, and he was performing with like this ensemble. This dude Borum Lee, who's a keyboard player. This guy Nate Edgar, who's a bass player, and they were doing a 2 night thing there that was a Primo and Dilla tribute. So they were doing like a lot of B sides, like Dilla and Primo B sides, and they wanted a couple rappers to come up and perform. So my boy Sean knows this guy Borum and was like, "Yo, you should bring Bobby on stage." So they were like, "All right, you know, let's bring him in." So I remember they were doing a rehearsal at this kid Borum's crib in Long Island City, and I show up. It was basically like in a basement, and they're all there practicing. And I basically like this is like an hour before we get on stage. So they're like, "All right, we want you to rap on you know, J. Rue the Damager, Me and the Papes, and Fat Joe Shit Is Real remix." So they just start playing, and I just start going. Like I had all these rhymes like in my Rolodex, and shit sounded good. And literally an hour and a half later, we're on stage at the venue, and they bring me out, and it ended up being a 2 night thing that we did.
Nice.
And the second night, I drove Daru home, and you know, for those that don't know Daru, like Daru's like one of the most accomplished drummers in hip hop. You know, he worked on fucking Black Milk, Guilty Simpson, to fucking Jack White and Gloria
Yeah.
Gaynor. You know, he's got 2 Grammys. He's fucking crazy. So, you know, I'm driving this guy home and he's like, "Yo, we should do an album together." And I'm like, "Okay, sure." You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm looking at him like, "All right, you know, people just exchange pleasantries. Like, he's
Yeah. Say
probably
shit.
not,
Just
you
saying
know what I'm
shit.
saying? Like he's probably not being for real." But I'm like, "Yeah, like let's do it." And he's like, "Okay, you know, take my number." And literally like 2 months later, he's like, "Yo, I'm in New York. I got a studio booked. show up on this date. We're gonna do the album. And I'm like, okay. So like literally like I'm like this is like a week from the day he gives me the call. So I'm like, okay, all right. So I show up at the studio session, and it's crazy because it's crazy how life works out. Like everything I had been doing up until that point, like prepared me for this moment. Cause I was just writing rhymes all the time. Like I was just constantly writing shit. And I showed up to the studio. It was a studio called Pinch Recording Studio in Long Island City. And I literally had no idea where this project was going to go. It was completely organic, the way everything came together. So, you know, I show up to the studio and I'm like, why don't we make an album that's like the complete antithesis of everything that's going on? Like stripped down, like almost make like a jam session on wax. You know what I mean? Like almost like the listener is in the room with you while there's a drum set in the corner and I get on the mic. And like, down to the way it's engineered, we tried to make it like that. And I'm like, also, you know, the people that are most neglected in this day and age is, you know, the crate digger, the DJ, the producer, you know, the guy that's always looking for break beats and samples. So I'm like, why don't we make it geared towards the producer? You know, let's make our own break beats, or like Daru, you make a break beat and I'll rap over it. And that's pretty much how it went down, man. Like he would go in the booth, he'd come up with a break beat, you know, like a drum pattern, and he'd be like, "You have anything for this?" And I'd be like, "All right, yeah, lay that down." He'd lay it down. I'd go in the booth, I'd spit a rhyme. Then it was like hot potato. And I'm like, "All right, what do you got next?" He'd go in the booth, he'd lay down a drum pattern, he'd be like, "You got anything for this?" And I'd lay it down. Dope. And we just, you know, it was just this back and forth thing where it was simultaneously the easiest recording session I ever did, but also the most difficult because, you know, he was challenging me as much as I was challenging him. Yeah. So like, you know, he just made drum beat after drum beat after drum beat after drum beat. And I literally just had a Rolodex of shit that I knew was never going to come out, that I was like, it's crazy how it works out because I just had all these rhymes in my head and I crafted them around the drum patterns that he was making. It's dope. And look, and it was literally on some one take shit. Like I told the engineer, I was like, "Yo, I don't want to do a lot of punch-ins. Like I want this to sound like I'm really spitting it in front of you." So I recorded most of those shits in one take, and that's pretty much what became the album. And it's dope that people recognize that. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times, like the intention goes over people's head, but that's what we intended to do, man. Like it was literally this like, let's do something that's stripped down because all the hip hop that's being made now sounds overproduced. Yeah. You know, the engineer can make somebody sound on beat that's not on beat. You know what I'm saying? Everything just sounds so perfect. And we wanted to make something that had the right amount of imperfections. You know what I mean? And
I was going to say real quick, it was dope because it made me feel like I could isolate my ears on both of you, if that made any sense, like one at a time. Like yeah. I could hear you and I could really focus on what you were saying. I could really focus on it was nice. It's a great
experience. Man. And we just put out the Breaks Instrumentals vinyl through Fat Beats.
Nice.
And that's kind of, we're so happy to do that because that's really what we set out to do, is like make something for the DJs, make something for the producers, you know what I'm saying, that are looking for new drum sounds. You know, people drop drum kits all the time. They drop these drum kits for people to sample. You know, Khalil does it, Jake One does it, Ski Beast does it. And that's we just kind of want to add to that, man. It's like we love to see people take what we've done and build on it. And that's the whole intention, man. Like we're all about sampling, we're all about sample culture and producer culture. And yeah, man, that vinyl's out now. You know what I'm saying?
Word.
So
Word. Yeah, it's a dope project. I mean, I love when I get to shit late. Actually, sometimes it bothers me because but I realize I can't keep up with everything. So I like when I hear some dope shit late where I'm like, oh, okay. Um, when we first talked about doing the interview, I hadn't heard this or anything. So I was like, okay, you know what I'm saying? I got to do the knowledge. So it's dope album, yo. So listen, I got to get ready to run. I got another show to jump on. I appreciate you for doing this, for coming through virtually and chopping it up, man. And keep doing what you're doing. I fucks with you heavy.
hey, man, thank you, bro. Really appreciate what you do, man. I'm a huge fan of the page, and yeah, man. You know, people want to follow me at Bobby J From Rockaway. You know, we got 3 projects out right now. The first one is Summer Classics. The second one is Endless Summer. That's a joint project with Static Selector. And then we got, last but not least, we got a One Mic and Drum, which is a collaborative project with me and drummer Daru Jones. That's distributed through Fat Beats. The vinyl's out now. If you're a producer, if you're a DJ and you just want, you know, new drum loops to chop up, new drum loops to cut up, the Break Instrumentals vinyl is out now.
Dope.
So, hey, man, I appreciate your platform. And, you know, anytime you need me, man, let me know.
No, we'll have to do it again, and hopefully we can link in the physical when shit settles, the dust settles with everything. But keep doing it, man. Any new music, funnel it. We fucks with you. We fucks with you heavy, man. Like you're, like I said, you got the oh shit factor. I'm the fucking tractor beam is on. So hit us up, man, for real. Like I mean that shit. So
hey, man, I'm gonna be tuning into the next one. So, yo, peace out, brother. Thank you.
Peace. Good luck.
Later.